Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ballet Reign.
Welcome back to Fairiations with Ballet Reign, where we reveal the secret symbolism behind the iconic fairy lineup from the ballet The Sleeping Beauty.
The fairy lineup, although seemingly just a beautiful collection of solos in the prologue of the ballet, it's actually rich with hidden secrets and symbolic references, as each fairy is not only dancing for the baby Princess Aurora, but also granting her a powerful blessing as their gift.
This is the 5th installment of the Fairiations series, and today's episode is going to be on the one y'all have all been waiting for, which is the fairy called Violente, also known as or reduced to the finger fairy.
But why the iconic pointing gesture, and what does it all mean in terms of the fairy's gift? Lucky for you, we are going to be revealing it all in today's episode, so make sure you hit the like button, swipe over and hype the video, and let's get going. Let's get started and introduce you guys to Violente. As you probably know by now, the fairy variations take place in the prologue of The Sleeping Beauty during the baby Princess Aurora's christening ceremony. So there are 6 fairies in total. Check the rest of the series that we've done so far. We have Candide, the crystal fountain fairy, who brings like candor and sincerity. Mm-hmm. Then we have Collante or Fleur de Farine, who brings beauty and health and vitality. Then we have Miette qui tombe, which is the breadcrumb fairy, and she brings like generosity and prosperity. Yeah. And then we have Canary qui chante, or canary fairy, who brings eloquence and a beautiful voice and musical gift.
And now we're finally at fairy number 5, Violente. As mentioned before, all of the fairies kind of go by various different names depending on the production and depending on the company. The original name for this fairy is Violente, but she can also be called the Fairy of Temperament or the Fairy of the Golden Vine.
Although that being said, in more casual ballet circles, such as this one, you could get away with just referring to her as the finger fairy and everyone would know what you were talking about.
Exactly.
Because obviously of the iconic pointing motif that's featured in the choreography.
We will get to that in a minute. Violente is, I guess it's kind of self-explanatory. Yep. Basically the French word for violence or like force or intensity.
I don't even know if we need to explain that. You can just like see it in the name.
Yeah, a little bit.
Moving on into the symbolism of Violente and sort of what she represents in the ballet. Yeah. Her gift to Princess Aurora is obviously, as you might expect, a strong temperament and like sort of boldness and courage and intensity, etc. Yes. Obviously, because Aurora is set to become a queen. So Violente's gift to her is the gift of being able to rule with confidence and with power and with
courage.
Yeah, courage. And that she won't ever struggle under the weight of the crown.
And we kind of do see this in the ballet. And while you might go like, oh wait, I thought Aurora is like kind of this really sweet, soft girl type protagonist, there are actually several places where Aurora does show that sort of daring courage in a way. If you look at the final wedding, you see that diagonal of fish dives. Yeah. That unsurprisingly takes quite an amount of courage. Yeah, I can assure you.
And I think that specific passage and just the music and the moment in general kind of represents that temperament coming through and blossoming into its full form, becoming the queen at the end of the ballet. Yeah. So I think it's really beautiful.
It's really beautiful because we see her in the beginning of the ballet. She's sort of like this softer character, and then, you know, as she kind of grows up and becomes a queen, we see the confidence come out. Yes. We see the ruler. Yes. And I think that's really cool in terms of Aurora's development.
I'd even say, like, at the end of the ballet, when it has that big, like,
it's
powerful,
so good,
like, finale vibe.
Oh my goodness.
That's where you see that, like, courage and that power. Just sort of the temperament that she has.
Yeah, exactly.
Not only being, like, a benevolent queen, but also being a ruler.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, a woman of power.
Yeah.
We love it.
You might be wondering why pick the golden vine for this fairy specifically, and I really think it was a very intentional choice. The temperament that Violente bestows on the princess can kind of be represented by the way that vines are apparently very, very strong and very tenacious plants.
They are.
I was actually doing some research for this video. So I researched vines.
Obviously.
Y'all, I go down the weirdest rabbit holes for these videos, I tell you. So I was doing research on vines. Apparently certain like vines or climbing plants can actually like erode like the mortar joints in walls and like stone walls.
Yeah.
Which I thought is very fascinating. Like a plant could literally ruin the structural integrity of a stone wall.
Yeah, no, it does. And you see like, you know how tree roots kind of like move underneath the sidewalks and they can crack through like the concrete streets and things like that.
So I feel like that kind of concept of the vines being able to overtake and grow over even something as hard as a stone wall kind of implies that Violente's gift gift to Aurora is not just strength and force, but it's also like tenacity and endurance and a backbone, kind of like almost not stubbornness, but almost
A
like
little
that
bit.
very resolute strength.
Yeah, and I think that you also see that in terms of like the bigger story of Aurora's life, because she falls asleep and she goes through that entire
curse.
100 years of that curse, and she still comes out on the other side,
Right.
and she ends up breaking through that impossible curse.
Now I'm sure you guys are curious about the Finger Fairy nickname.
Yeah, they're like, please tell us why the Finger Fairy.
Why did we get Finger Fairy from, the Fairy of the Golden Vine? And this is actually not as difficult or deep as you might expect. This is really just because her variation incorporates a lot of this sort of pointing motif in the choreography. And this is also very intentional. It is not just a cool feature.
No.
It has a really fascinating reasoning behind it. Apparently, around the time that the Sleeping Beauty was being created, the Mariinsky Theater, well then the Imperial Ballet Theater, was actually getting like electricity installed
for the first
throughout
time.
the theater for the first time ever.
That's right.
So prior to that, they had like gas lighting, which was a lot more dangerous.
Very dangerous.
And so they were, switching it all out and transitioning over to like electricity and electric lights.
And so apparently Petipa, as he was creating the Ballet of the Sleeping Beauty and creating this variation in particular, he decided to incorporate this pointing motif as sort of an homage to the events of the century that kind of represents, sparks or something, or electricity shooting out of her fingertips.
Yeah, some people say it's to reference like the electric currents or like the energy, the flow of energy that's
Exactly.
being directed out of the dancer's hands. Hence the pointing motif, and led to the affectionate and slightly irreverent nickname, the Finger Fairy.
Personal note, the golden vine kind of reminds me of like little string lights. So
Oh yeah, you're right.
kind of just what
like
that's what it
electricity.
makes me think of.
Oh, that's cute.
Like tiny little string lights.
You're right.
That's a golden vine.
That's
With the
adorable.
little leaves, but it's like little light bulbs.
That's actually cute.
I think it's cute.
Aww.
That's what it makes me think of.
I love that. Now I know you guys were curious about like the overarching plot line, like from previous fairies.
Yes.
We have the Crystal Fountain Fairy, which is the water. We have Fleur de Farine, which is like fine flour. Then we have Miette qui tombe, which is breadcrumbs. So you mix the water and flour, you make bread. And then we have Canary Fairy, because the birds come to eat the bread. I don't know if Violente cleanly fits into that.
I don't think she necessarily
Aside from the
does.
fact that the birds might be energized from eating the bread, but I really don't think that's related in any way.
Maybe not, or maybe they fly away and perch on the vine.
Maybe. I'm reaching here, okay?
It's reaching. I
It's
think
a
I think
reach.
it kind of stops.
I think it kind of stops
stop
there.
there.
But you know what? In my attempts to reach it, we'll just say that the birds get energized and happy from eating the bread. And so now we
Exactly.
have Violente because they have energy and strength now. So we'll say that that's what it is. And that's canon now because I said so.
Getting into the costuming of this fairy, and we were talking about in earlier episodes that, a lot of the fairies don't really have a designated color scheme across all productions, except for the previous fairy that we talked about, Canary Fairy. She's almost always in yellow or maybe brown.
Canary colors.
As for Violente, she's actually one of the other fairies in the lineup that kind of sticks to a consistent brand. Violente is often seen in red.
Like this color.
Or like burgundy.
Yeah, like a burgundy
Kind of like
red.
this. Sometimes oranges or
Yeah,
something
I've
like
seen
that.
her in like a darker orange.
Yeah.
I've seen her in bright red.
Yeah, bright red too.
I've seen her in like burgundy color. I've seen her in a couple other colors, mostly like reds and oranges. Obviously, she's very passionate, very powerful. The fairy of temperament. So obviously she has kind of like brighter, bolder colors, which is great because then you can kind of recognize her from everywhere.
So that combined with the finger motif kind of gives Violente a pretty strong branding package,
Exactly.
which is kind of nice because then it's more recognizable for audience members.
I think that sort of made her stand out as one of the more iconic, or at least more memorable, of the fairy lineup.
I think so. Now we're gonna get into the variation itself, and of course, the choreography, as we mentioned before, is by our wonderful man, Marius Petipa. The incredible music is by our great man, Tchaikovsky, who we all know, love, and adore on this channel. Don't mess with Tchaikovsky. I think that in general, this variation is one of the longest ones in the lineup. I think all the variations that we've covered so far are quite short. Canary, especially, the last one was a blink and it's gone.
Yeah.
But Violente actually is quite a decent length for a variation.
All of Tchaikovsky's music for the Fairiations really encapsulate the vibe that he's trying to get across for each of the fairies. I think the best way I can describe the music is it's very striking.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Because they have this constant da-da-dun, 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 da-da-dun motif to it.
Yeah, it's like the classical orchestration version of pew,
cute. Yeah, like you can feel the power and like again like
The energy flying,
and
yeah.
that
the sort of electric power, I
Yes.
guess, behind the variation.
Yeah.
This is one of the only variations that has an intro.
yes,
Which is kind of surprising. Like she'll come out and they actually have a little bit of a musical intro, which is notable because everyone else just boom right off the bat you get going.
straight shot out of a
Yeah,
cannon and you have to go. This one actually has dun 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 dun.
She commands the room immediately the moment the music starts.
The first passage is a series of very fast PKs to coup de pied back and to attitude. This is, for me, because it's so directional this way, you can almost, this is personal interpretation, it almost feels like a queen commanding her subjects.
Exactly.
Go this way.
Exactly.
Or in here, the attitude is come here.
That's right.
You know, it's almost that sort of commanding energy.
Some people interpret it as like she's pointing to like the north and south poles, which is kind of just like directing the flow of energy.
Yeah,
in a way, which is kind of reflects the way, you know, she would eventually order and direct her court. Then we have this really fun passage where she basically does these tiny little, you could consider it a precipite or maybe a little assemble, but it's all sur le point or on point.
Yeah.
And this is really, really, really fun because you're technically like galloping on your own toes.
All of these variations have so much point work. Like so much just like jumping on your toes, running on your toes. Now we have awesome blades on point.
Yeah. It's fast too.
It's really fast, and frankly, like awesome blades are difficult, especially because there's an element of brushing through the floor.
Yeah.
But you're like brushing
on point, you can't.
The tip of your point shoe across the floor into that awesome blade.
It's so cool though, and it just gives that weightless appearance because they are fairies, and so that's why they have so much point work specifically incorporated into all of the variations.
I think it's a really cool motif just because you never see it.
Yeah, you never really see it anywhere, and I think it matches the music really well because
It's one of the more satisfying.
It's so satisfying.
Satisfying sections of this variation.
Frankly, I kind of like that step. I think it's really fun.
Yeah. And then we have, this is probably like the rest step for the dancer. We have just a series of sous-releve pointing progressively more upward. The dancer always has to embody the gifts that the fairy is giving.
Yeah,
And that's just part of the variations.
Yeah.
But
This one you
have
need to
have
attack
that,
it.
That power,
Yeah.
that assertiveness, that like just energy.
It's the position of the body itself. It's also your eye gaze and your focus and stuff. And it's just, she's magnetic. And this is where it really gets to shine because she's really just directing your attention. And your attention naturally goes wherever she points because her presence is that strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the rest step. Sous-releve. It's like the first step you learn when you first start point. And so here it is in this variation. But
It's
with
the one time where you get to like, because the rest of the variation is not easy. Let me tell you.
Then we get into the fun part. I think the music here is really, really fun.
Yeah.
This part of the music screams turns. And so we turn.
Perfect. You da 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 dun 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 bum 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 da 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 da.
It's perfect.
It's musically and choreographically. It's like this.
They mesh together so perfectly. It's like milk and tea.
As a dancer, I think passages like that
So
are
much
just
fun.
really fun.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's from the arabesque to the step up and you going into the chaîné. Something about that transition is just really satisfying. Dancer's note.
Anytime where the music literally tells you what to do and you just have to follow it, feels so good. Also fun to watch.
Yeah.
Final passage, pretty much.
Yeah.
One of the last passages. We have this really, really, really quick passage. It's a lot of point work once again because we have a fairy. And this is the passage again where you see the opposite lines of energy flowing with the foot going out one way and the arms and the hands going out the other way. And then we have the little pas de bras to change and we go to the other side.
And the importance with this particular passage is, yes, she's doing a lot of small, tiny, articulate footwork, right? We have tiny little petit pas main and a tiny little pas de bras. But the importance is you have to lock at the end of the position and out and out and out and pas de bras. And it can't be and pas de bras, right? It has to be and
Yeah, exactly. Which matches the music.
the overall temperament, I guess, of this variation is very different than even something like Canary Fairy or something like, you know, Coulant, even though they are more energetic variations. This one has like a power to it that you have to maintain, even if the steps might be considered dainty.
You need to have power, and it's kind of funny in terms of electricity. It's more grounded.
You're right.
It's just a little bit more grounded, so it has, you know, that sort of force that can come with it, rather than just kind of being up in the air and floaty.
Yeah. And then after that, we just wrap it up.
A couple step-up turns and a tiny chassé entonant, and boom, finish.
Stop on a dime.
Yeah.
That is the variation.
That's the variation.
Again, definitely one of the longer ones, which honestly we really appreciate.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of the variations are like,
So short.
Wait, come back. Yeah, but here we get a nice long time with Violente.
Yeah, you get to enjoy it. You get to kind of breathe with it a little bit. So that's nice pacing-wise.
Violente is a really fascinating fairy, and there's a lot of symbolism baked into the choreography itself.
Yeah, exactly.
And I honestly think it's a really cute reference. Like, it's really wholesome to me that
so
it's like
wholesome.
referencing something that actually happened, like out of canon. Like,
Yeah, like the
not even in the
electricity.
story, but just like, oh yeah, our theater got electric lights.
So here's a variation.
Here's an homage to it in the ballet, and it's like a little Easter egg. It's almost like a diary kind of, or
A
like
little
history,
bit.
a tiny bit of history,
A tiny bit.
baked into the ballet. So whenever you see this variation, you realize little in the subtext of the variation is like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we got electric lights. I just think it's like the cutest thing.
It's wholesome. It's wholesome. But anyways, enjoy the variation.
And there you have it, everybody. This was the 5th Fairiations installment from the series. Hopefully you understand it a whole lot more now.
Hopefully.
I certainly did.
Yeah.
Several strange Google searches later.
We always learn so much during this series, and
Yeah.
hopefully you guys do too. If you're excited to see Fairy number 6, which is coming out very, very soon, then make sure you subscribe to the channel so you do not miss it. And in the meantime, if you have not seen the rest of the fairies in the lineup prior to this one, we will have it linked below in the description box for you to go check out.
And we're almost closing out the series.
We are
I
so
think we
close.
have 2 more fairies.
1 or 2.
1
Or 3. We have anywhere between 1 and 3 more episodes of this series.
1 and 3. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Just stay tuned and subscribe.
Stay tuned and subscribe.
We want to say a huge thank you to our patrons, all these amazing people that you're seeing on the screen right now. All of these people directly help support us, our team, and the channel as a whole, and
Yes.
keep the niche ballet nerd content.
They keep our electric lights on.
Oh yeah! They keep our electric lights on, and they keep Michelangelo running.
Yeah, exactly.
And they keep the ballet nerd content coming to you guys every single Saturday. So if you're sitting there like, oh my god, I want to help keep ballet nerd content coming to my subscription box every Saturday, then you can join this list of patrons by clicking the link in the description box or visiting patreon.com/Ballet Reign, and we'll catch you over there. Share this video for extra temperament.
Yeah, extra
We need it
ballet
these
nerd
days
temperament.
for strength and confidence and power.
Yes, exactly.
And good ballet nerd vibes, obviously. Anyways, I think that is all from us for now. This is Ballet Reign signing off. Until the next video.
bye.
Yeah, my search history for this video has been so weird.
Oh, I know.
Because I have searched like vines.
Yeah.
Can vines grow through walls? And what year did the Marinsky get electricity?
We reveal the secret symbolism behind the famous fairy lineup.
You can cut some of the adjectives if you need to. It's a bit verbose.
That's such a good word.
Verbose is such a good word.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Awkward silence.
Make sure to share this variation to the people that you want to have better No, I'm joking.
Don't be passive aggressive.
No, I'm joking. Sending it to myself currently.
No.
We all need better temperament, you guys.